The council chamber floated in the void between stars, a massive structure that had witnessed 10,000 years of galactic history. Inside its crystalline walls, representatives from 200 species gathered in their designated sectors, their forms ranging from gaseous clouds to silicon-based giants. But today, all attention focused on the central podium where the elders stood. The elders were three beings, each representing a civilization so ancient that their origins had become mythology. They rarely spoke in council sessions anymore, preferring to let the younger races govern themselves. But today was different. Today they had called an emergency session. Commander Kelthera of the Zephix Empire shifted impatiently in her hovering seat. Her scaled skin gleamed under the chamber's soft lights, and her 4 eyes tracked every movement with predatory precision. At only 40 cycles old, she was the youngest fleet commander in Zephix history, a position she had earned through aggressive tactics and unwavering confidence. She found these council meetings tedious, especially when the elders insisted on discussing ancient history. The eldest of the 3 elders, a being of pure energy contained within a humanoid force field, raised what served as its hand. The chamber fell silent immediately. "We gather today to discuss a matter of utmost importance." The elder's voice resonated directly in every being's mind, bypassing the need for translation. Sector 281, known locally as the Sol system, has shown unusual energy signatures. Several younger members have proposed investigating this quarantine zone. Kelthera felt a surge of satisfaction. Her proposal had reached the highest levels. For 3 cycles, she had been arguing that the Sol system quarantine was a waste of resources. The system contained a garden world, rare minerals, and strategic positioning. Yet it sat empty, forbidden to all, based on nothing but old fears. "The quarantine has been in place for 600 standard years," another council member spoke up, a reptilian being from the Thros Collective. "Perhaps it is time to reassess. Surely any threat has diminished by now." The second elder, appearing as a collection of geometric shapes that hurt to look at directly, pulsed with what might have been anger. "You do not understand. You were not there." "Precisely our point," Kelthera spoke boldly, rising from her seat. Protocol dictated she wait to be recognized, but she had never been one for excessive formality. "None of us were there. We only have stories, warnings, and fear. The elders speak of humanity as if they were demons, but what evidence do we have? Ancient battle reports from empires that no longer exist? Tales designed to frighten children?" A murmur rippled through the chamber. Some agreed with her boldness. Others looked scandalized. The elders, however, remained perfectly still. "You wish for evidence?" the third elder asked. This one appeared almost human itself, an aged figure in flowing robes. "Very well. We will share what we remember." The chamber's lights dimmed and a holographic display materialized in the center. It showed a blue-green planet, beautiful and inviting, orbiting a yellow star. "Earth," the elder continued, "a death world of the highest classification. Its gravity is crushing. Its atmosphere is corrosive to most species. Its weather patterns are violent beyond measure. Its oceans are toxic. Its native diseases would kill most of you within hours. Yet life not only survived there, it thrived." The image shifted to show creatures. Kelthera watched with fascination as predators with massive teeth chased prey across open plains. She saw organisms that could survive being frozen solid, then thaw and continue living. She witnessed creatures that could regenerate lost limbs, survive without water for months, or adapt to pressures that would crush starship hulls. And at the top of this nightmare ecosystem, the elder said softly, "Evolved humanity." The image now showed humans. They looked fragile, with soft skin and no natural weapons. Kelthera almost laughed. "These were the great threat?" "They appear weak," the elder said, as if reading her thoughts. "This is their greatest deception. Humans are endurance predators. They can run for days without stopping. They heal from injuries that would kill most species. They can survive in temperatures that would freeze or boil others. They can eat almost anything organic. And most terrifying of all, they can adapt." The image shifted again, showing human history. Kelthera watched as these supposedly primitive beings went from throwing rocks to splitting atoms in a few thousand years. She saw them survive plagues, wars, and disasters that should have rendered them extinct. 600 years ago, we made contact," the first elder resumed. "It was meant to be peaceful. We sent ambassadors, scientists, and diplomats. We offered them a place in the galactic community. What happened? Someone asked from the back of the chamber. They asked questions, the elder replied. Thousands of questions. About our technology, our governments, our military capabilities, our weaknesses. We thought them merely curious. We underestimated their intelligence. The hologram now showed a meeting between humans and various alien species. Kelthera could see the humans watching everything, recording everything, analyzing everything. Then came the incident. The geometric elder interjected. A trade dispute with the Krell Dominion escalated. The Krell, believing humans to be primitive and weak, attacked a human colony ship. They killed 5,000 humans, mostly civilians, children. The chamber grew colder. Even Kelthera felt a chill. The human response was immediate, the elder continued. They declared war. Not just on the Krell, but on the 3 empires that supported the Krell's actions. We thought it suicide. We tried to mediate. They refused. The hologram showed space battles. Kelthera leaned forward, studying the tactics. Human ships were smaller, fewer in number, but they moved with terrifying coordination. They didn't fight honorably or follow expected patterns. They used asteroids as weapons, turned space debris into shrapnel clouds, and employed nuclear weapons in ways that defied conventional warfare. The humans had studied us, the robed elder explained. In just 2 years of contact, they had analyzed our military doctrine, identified our weaknesses, and developed counters for our every advantage. They fought with a ferocity we had never witnessed. They took casualties that would have broken any other species and kept fighting. When their ships were damaged, they rammed ours. When they ran out of ammunition, they used their ships as bombs. The battle footage was brutal. Kelthera watched human vessels sacrifice themselves to take down enemy flagships. She saw boarding actions where humans fought in hand-to-hand combat, with species twice their size and won through sheer viciousness. In 3 months, they crippled the Krell Dominion, the first elder said quietly. In 6 months, they had defeated all 3 empires. They could have conquered us all. They had the momentum, the rage, and the capability. What stopped them? Kelthera asked, genuinely curious now. They stopped themselves, the elder replied. Their own leaders called for peace. They said they had made their point, proven that humanity could not be pushed around. They proposed a treaty. They would return to their home system and cease all expansion if we agreed to leave them alone. Completely alone. No contact, no trade, no observation. And we agreed, another council member asked incredulously. We agreed, the elder confirmed, because the alternative was a war that would have cost billions more lives. We established the quarantine zone, 5 light-years in radius around their star. We marked it forbidden, and for 600 years there has been silence. The hologram faded and the lights returned to normal. Kelthera processed what she had seen. It was impressive, certainly, but that was 6 centuries ago. Technology had advanced. The galactic community was stronger now. Surely these humans, isolated and alone, had fallen behind. With all respect to the elders, Kelthera said carefully. This was ancient history. 600 years is a long time. Without access to galactic technology and trade, the humans must have stagnated. They might even be extinct. We're maintaining an expensive quarantine zone around a possibly dead system, based on fear of what they once were. Other voices joined hers in agreement. The younger species, those who had joined the community in the last few centuries, had never even heard of humanity. To them it seemed absurd to waste resources on ghosts and legends. The elders looked at each other, communicating in ways beyond normal perception. Finally, the robed one spoke. We will say this once more, and we will not repeat it. The quarantine is not a punishment. It is not a prison. It is protection. Protection for you, not for them. Humanity chose silence. They chose to step back from the galaxy. This was their mercy, not their weakness. If you breach the quarantine, if you wake them from their chosen isolation, you will force them to make a different choice. And what choice would that be? Kelthera challenged. The elder's eyes, ancient and tired, met hers. Violence. Humanity is very good at violence. I'm not afraid of human violence, Kelthera declared. I propose we send a scouting mission. A small fleet, nothing threatening. We will observe from a distance, determine if humans still exist, and assess their technological level. If they prove harmless or extinct, we can open the sector for colonization. If they prove dangerous, we can respond with overwhelming force. We have 200 species in this community. They have one world. The debate raged for hours. The elders argued against it. The older species urged caution. But the younger races, emboldened by Kelthera's confidence and frustrated by what they saw as excessive fear, voted in favor. By a narrow margin, the scouting mission was approved. As the council dispersed, the robed elder approached Kelthera directly. Up close, she could see the weariness in its form, the weight of millennia. "Young commander," it said softly, "you believe we are cowards, afraid of shadows. You believe humanity is just another species, perhaps once dangerous but now diminished. You are wrong." "Then let me be wrong," Kelthera replied. "Let me see for myself." "You will," the elder said sadly. "And when you do, when you see what we try to protect you from, remember this moment. Remember that we warned you. Remember that you chose this." The elder turned to leave, then paused. "One more thing, Kelthera of the Zephyx. We have seen many species rise and fall. We have witnessed empires span galaxies and collapse into dust. In all our existence, across all our experience, we have learned one truth. There are only two types of species in this universe. Those who have met humanity and learned to fear them, and those who have met humanity and learned nothing because they are extinct." Kelthera watched the elder depart, feeling the first small seed of doubt, but she crushed it quickly. She had not become the youngest fleet commander by being cautious. She had earned her position through bold action and decisive victory. This would be no different. Within a week, she had assembled her scouting force. 50 ships, all equipped with the latest stealth technology. They would enter the quarantine zone, observe from maximum range, and return with data. Simple, safe, effective. As her fleet prepared to make the jump to the Sol system, Kelthera stood on the bridge of her flagship, studying the star charts. The Sol system didn't look special. One average star, a handful of planets, nothing remarkable. "Commander," her sensor officer called out. "We're detecting old automated warning beacons at the quarantine boundary. They're repeating the same message in 200 languages." "Play it," Kelthera ordered. The message was simple, just text scrolling across her screen in Zephyx script. "Quarantine zone, do not enter, this is your only warning." Kelthera smiled. "Noted. Proceed with the mission." Her fleet pierced the invisible boundary and entered the quarantine zone. Behind them, the ancient warning beacons continued their lonely vigil, repeating their message to the empty void. They had been broadcasting for 600 years, and in all that time, no one had been foolish enough to ignore them. Until now, the elders watching from their observation post felt the breach immediately. The robed one closed its eyes and whispered a prayer in a language dead for eons. "They chose silence," it said to its companions. "Now we have forced them to choose violence. May forgiveness find us, for we have failed once more to protect the young from their own arrogance." In the Sol system, deep beneath the surface of Earth, in command centers that had waited centuries for this exact moment, alarms began to sound. Humanity, sleeping giant of the galaxy, opened its eyes and looked toward the stars once more. The long silence was over. Kelthera's fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system, their stealth fields active and sensors scanning in all directions. The bridge of her flagship hummed with quiet efficiency as officers monitored their instruments, searching for any sign of human activity. "Report," Kelthera commanded, settling into her command chair. "System appears stable." "Commander," her science officer replied, "we're detecting radio emissions from the inner system. Primitive electromagnetic broadcasts, similar to what pre-spaceflight civilizations use. No signs of advanced detection grids or defensive platforms." Kelthera felt vindicated. Primitive radio? The humans had regressed just as she suspected. 600 years of isolation had done exactly what she predicted. They had fallen behind, perhaps even forgotten how to reach the stars. "Move us in slowly," she ordered. "I want detailed scans of every planet, every moon, every piece of debris larger than a meter. If humans still exist here, I want to know their capabilities." What Kelthera didn't know was that the moment her fleet breached the quarantine boundary, every military installation in the Sol system had gone to full alert. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains on Earth, in a command center built into solid granite, Fleet Admiral Marcus Chen stood before a holographic display showing Kelthera's ships in perfect detail. "Confirmed intrusion," his tactical officer reported. 50 vessels, Zephyx configuration, standard military stealth systems. "They think we can't see them." Chen was a man in his 60s with gray hair and eyes that had seen too much combat. His uniform was simple, practical, bearing only one insignia, the emblem of Earth's unified defense force. He studied the alien ships with the calm of someone who had been preparing for this moment his entire life. "Let them look," Chen said quietly. "Activate Protocol Omega-7. I want them to see exactly what we want them to see, nothing more." Throughout the Sol system, a vast network of sensors and communication relays came alive. These weren't the primitive systems Kelthera's scanners were detecting. Those were decoys broadcast designed to make humanity appear backward and vulnerable. The real detection grid existed on a quantum level, invisible to conventional sensors, spread throughout the asteroid belt and Oort cloud like a spider's web. On Mars, in domed cities that stretched for hundreds of kilometers, millions of colonists went about their daily lives. But beneath those domes, in hardened bunkers, weapon systems that had slept for centuries began powering up. On Venus, beneath clouds of sulfuric acid, floating cities armed with weapons that could crack planets rotated into position. In the asteroid belt, thousands of automated defense platforms masked as mining equipment oriented themselves toward the approaching fleet. And everywhere, hidden in places no alien scanner would think to look, humanity's true ships waited. Not the civilian vessels visible in orbit around Earth, but the warships, sleek, deadly, and built with 6 centuries of focused military development. Kelthera's fleet moved deeper into the system, completely unaware of the guns now tracking their every move. "Picking up the 3rd planet now," her sensor officer announced. "Confirmed Earth. Oxygen, nitrogen atmosphere, liquid water oceans, electromagnetic emissions consistent with industrial civilization. Population centers visible on all continents. Are they broadcasting?" Kelthera asked. "Yes, Commander. Television signals, radio, primitive internet protocols. Nothing encrypted or militarized. It's all civilian traffic, entertainment broadcasts, news programs." Kelthera studied the data. Everything pointed to a civilization that had either forgotten its martial past or never recovered from the ancient war. The cities were large but built with simple materials. The orbital stations were basic, designed for science and commerce, not warfare. There were no obvious military installations, no weapons platforms, no fleet. "This is what the elders feared," she muttered. "They've become soft, peaceful, irrelevant." Her first officer, a cautious veteran named Krill, shifted uncomfortably. "Commander, the elders warned us. Perhaps we should observe from this distance and return with our findings." "Nonsense," Kelthera waved dismissively. "We've come this far. I want detailed scans of their infrastructure, their technology level, their resource distribution. This system is too valuable to abandon based on ancient superstition." She ordered her fleet to advance to the orbit of the 4th planet, a red desert world. From there they would have a clear view of Earth and its moon. In the command center on Earth, Admiral Chen watched the alien fleet position itself exactly where his analysts had predicted they would. "They're following the standard playbook," his intelligence officer observed. "Cautious approach, maintaining what they believe is safe distance, scanning for threats they can understand." "Good," Chen replied. "Let them feel confident. How long until the rest of the council notices they've breached the quarantine?" "Estimated 4 to 6 hours, sir. The elders will respond immediately, but the younger species will argue for more time to gather data." Chen nodded. "Then we have a window. Prepare the message drones. I want one positioned near every major galactic community world, ready to broadcast on my command." "Sir?" His communications officer spoke up hesitantly. "Are we really going to do this? After 600 years of peace, are we going to war again?" Chen turned to look at her. She was young, born in the peace that followed the long silence. She had trained for war her entire life but never believed she would see it. "They fired the first shot when they crossed the boundary," Chen said firmly. "The quarantine wasn't a suggestion. It was a treaty. They've broken it. Now we respond, not with genocide, not with conquest, but with a message that will echo for another 600 years. Humanity does not yield." Back in space, Kelthera's science team had completed their preliminary scans. "Commander, we're detecting approximately 12 billion humans on Earth. Another 2 billion spread across orbital stations and the moon. Their technology appears to be roughly equivalent to late industrial age, early digital period. No spacecraft capable of interstellar travel detected. No energy signatures consistent with antimatter or fusion weapons." Kelthera smiled. The galaxy had been afraid of this, a species that hadn't even developed proper fusion power. "Excellent. Prepare a communication package for the Council. Include all scan data. We'll recommend the quarantine be lifted and the system opened for colonization. We can relocate the humans to a preserve somewhere. Let them live out their simple existence while we exploit the system's resources. Commander, her tactical officer suddenly called out an alarm. Energy spike detected. One of the orbital stations around Earth just powered up something massive. Weapons? Kelthera demanded. The Galactic Council chamber erupted into chaos the moment Kelthera finished her report. Representatives from 200 species shouted over each other, their translation devices creating a cacophony of overlapping voices. Some demanded immediate military action. Others called for diplomatic solutions. A few of the older species who remembered the stories simply sat in stunned silence. Order! The council speaker bellowed, his voice amplified to override all others. We will have order! Kelthera stood at the central podium, her scales still pale from the encounter. 3 days had passed since her fleet's retreat from Sol, but she could still see those human ships appearing from nowhere, surrounding her forces with casual efficiency. She had filed her report immediately, expecting support, perhaps even sympathy for facing an unexpected threat. Instead, she found only accusations. You were warned. A representative from the Vorlax species shouted, its tentacles writhing with agitation. The elders explicitly advised against this mission. The elders are cowards living in the past, a younger species countered. Commander Kelthera discovered exactly what we suspected. Humanity has advanced weapons, yes, but they're contained in one system. We have thousands of systems, millions of ships. If they're hostile, we should eliminate the threat now before they expand. The 3 elders sat in their elevated section, observing but not participating. The robed one caught Kelthera's eye, and she saw something in its expression that chilled her more than the human weapons had. Pity. The debate raged for hours. Finally, a consensus emerged, though not the one Kelthera expected. The Zephix Empire, humiliated by the loss of a ship and the retreat of their youngest commander, demanded satisfaction. 3 other empires, eager to prove their strength and concerned about humanity's unexpected capabilities, agreed to join them. We propose a response fleet, the Zephix ambassador declared. 500 ships representing 4 empires. We will enter the Sol system in force, demonstrate our overwhelming superiority and force the humans to surrender. They will be relocated to a suitable world where they can live under observation. The Sol system will be opened for colonization, as it should have been centuries ago. This is madness, one of the older species protested. You're proposing war based on pride and greed. We're proposing a police action, the ambassador corrected smoothly. Humanity destroyed one of our ships unprovoked. They threatened galactic stability by hiding weapons of such magnitude. We have a responsibility to the younger species who look to us for protection. The vote was called. Despite the elders' opposition, despite protest from those who remembered the motion passed. The response fleet would be assembled within 2 weeks. Kelthera was given a choice: face court-martial for the mission's failure, or redeem herself by leading a portion of the response fleet. She chose redemption. Her pride demanded it. In the Sol system, Admiral Chen received the news through humanity's intelligence network. Spies embedded within the galactic community for generations had sent detailed information about fleet composition, departure times, and tactical plans. Chen stood in his command center studying the data with his senior staff. 500 ships, his tactical officer stated. 4 Empire fleets, standard mixed combat groups. They plan to enter the system in force, establish orbital superiority over Earth, and demand surrender. They're not trying to exterminate us, Chen observed. They want to capture and relocate us. How thoughtful. Sir, even with our preparations, 500 ships is a significant force. We have numerical superiority in system. But they're bringing heavy capital ships, dreadnoughts that outmass anything we've built. Chen smiled, but there was no humor in it. They're bringing ships designed to fight the wars they understand. Linear engagements, mass formations, overwhelming firepower concentrated in big targets. They haven't learned. Learned what, sir? That we don't fight fair. Chen activated the holographic display showing the entire Sol system. For 600 years we've been preparing for this. We didn't just build ships. We weaponized everything. Every asteroid, every moon, every piece of space debris. We've turned our entire system into a fortress, and they're about to walk right into it. He turned to his staff. Activate Operation Prometheus. All phases, full authorization. It's time to show them what 6 centuries of focused human ingenuity looks like. Throughout the Sol system, orders flashed through quantum communication networks. On Mars, massive railgun batteries rose from beneath the red sand. On Europa, ice fields split open to reveal missile silos containing weapons that had never been fired in anger. In the asteroid belt, thousands of rocks that had been carefully positioned over decades began slow, precise maneuvers, and in orbit around Neptune, where no one would think to look, humanity's true fleet began powering up. These weren't the patrol ships that had confronted Kelthera. These were warships designed with one purpose: to kill larger, more powerful vessels through speed, coordination, and weapons the galaxy had never seen. Captain Sarah Okonkwo stood on the bridge of the UDS Relentless, one of humanity's newest hunter-killer cruisers. At 35, she was young for a capital ship commander, but she had trained her entire life for this moment. Her crew of 200 moved with practiced efficiency, bringing the ship's systems online. "Ma'am, we're receiving the final battle plan from Fleet Command," her XO reported. "We're assigned to Wolfpack 7, target priority Alpha. We'll engage the enemy dreadnoughts once they're in the kill zone." Sarah studied the tactical display. The enemy fleet would enter the system in standard formation, dreadnoughts at the center, cruisers and destroyers screening. They would advance toward Earth expecting resistance at the outer planets. They wouldn't find any. "They're going to think we're hiding," she murmured. "That we're afraid." "Aren't we letting them think exactly that, ma'am?" her weapons officer asked. "Yes, and when they're deep in our system, surrounded by what they think are just rocks and ice, we'll teach them that in space. Everything is a weapon if you're creative enough." 2 weeks later, the combined fleet of the 4 empires gathered at the quarantine boundary. Kelthera stood on the bridge of her new flagship, the Retribution, a heavy cruiser given to her for this mission. Around her, 500 warships prepared to jump into the Sol system. The fleet commander, Admiral Varkos of the Thros Collective, broadcast to all ships, "Today we restore order to the galaxy. The humans have shown themselves to be hostile and dangerous. We will enter their system, neutralize their defenses, and force their surrender. This is not a war of extermination. We are civilized beings. We will offer them one chance to evacuate their worlds peacefully. If they refuse, we will use necessary force." Kelthera listened to the speech and felt nothing but emptiness. She remembered Admiral Chen's face on that transmission, the weariness in his eyes. She remembered the Elder's warnings. Part of her wanted to call this off, to turn back. But she had chosen this path, and her pride would not let her retreat again. "All ships jump in 3, 2, 1, jump." The fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system. Sensors immediately began scanning for threats. They found nothing. No ships, no stations, no weapons platforms. The system appeared empty except for the worlds themselves and their orbital infrastructure. "Advance to the 4th planet," Admiral Varkos ordered. "Maintain formation. Shields up, weapons ready." The massive fleet began moving inward, dreadnoughts at the center like ancient wet Navy battleships, smaller vessels forming protective screens. It was an impressive sight. 500 warships representing the might of 4 empires, advancing in perfect formation. In his command center, Admiral Chen watched them come. "They're following the predicted path exactly," his tactical officer reported. "They'll pass through the asteroid belt in 40 minutes. Good. Give them 30 minutes to get comfortable. Then introduce them to the asteroids." The alien fleet advanced steadily, confidence growing with each passing minute. They were deep in the system now, past Jupiter, approaching the asteroid belt. Still no resistance. Maybe the humans had fled? Maybe they had decided surrender was preferable to annihilation? Then the asteroids moved, multiple contacts. The sensor officer on Kelthera's ship suddenly screamed. "The asteroids they're moving. Impossible velocity changes." The first wave hit the fleet like a shotgun blast. Hundreds of asteroids, some as large as buildings, others the size of cars, all accelerated to impossible velocities by mass drivers hidden throughout the belt. They struck the fleet's formation with devastating effect. Ships raised shields, but asteroids don't care about shields. The kinetic energy was so massive that shields overloaded instantly. The first 3 dreadnoughts to be hit simply broke apart, their hulls shattered by rocks moving at percentages of light speed. "Evasive action!" Varkos screamed. "Break formation. Return fire." But what do you shoot at? The asteroids weren't ships with engines and reactors to target. They were just rocks, and there were thousands of them, all moving, all deadly. The fleet scattered, and that's when the second phase began. From the ice of Europa, missiles launched in waves. Not dozens, not hundreds, but thousands. Each missile was smart, capable of independent targeting and course correction. They swarmed through space like angry insects seeking engine signatures. "This isn't warfare," Kelthera whispered in horror as she watched another dreadnought die, overwhelmed by dozens of missile strikes. "This is murder." "All ships retreat," Admiral Varkos began, but his transmission was cut off as his flagship took a direct hit from an asteroid the size of a small moon. The mighty vessel simply ceased to exist in a flash of nuclear fire, and then the human ships appeared. Not from hyperspace, not from behind planets, but from the asteroids themselves. They had been hiding among the rocks, their heat signatures masked, waiting. Sarah Okonkwo's ship, the Relentless, emerged from concealment alongside 30 other hunter-killers. "Wolfpack 7, engage at will. Target the remaining dreadnoughts. Make every shot count." Her ship was tiny compared to the enemy capital ships, but it was fast and armed with weapons designed specifically for this purpose. Plasma lances that could punch through armor like tissue paper, antimatter torpedoes that could crack a dreadnought in half, and most devastating of all, quantum disruption warheads that could make enemy shields simply stop working. The human ships moved like predators, working in perfect coordination. 3 would engage a dreadnought, stripping its shields with concentrated fire, while a 4th would deliver the killing blow. Then they would disappear back into the chaos, reposition, and strike again. The battle became a massacre. The alien fleet, designed for traditional warfare, couldn't adapt to this three-dimensional nightmare where every piece of debris might be a weapon and every empty space might hide a ship. They tried to retreat, but human vessels had sealed the escape routes, herding them deeper into the kill zone. Kelthera's ship shook from impact after impact. Her shields were failing, her weapons mostly offline. Around her, the fleet was dying. "This is Commander Kelthera to all ships," she broadcast on all frequencies. "Cease fire! Cease fire! We surrender." The barrage stopped instantly. The human ships held their positions but stopped shooting. In the eerie silence that followed, Admiral Chen's voice came over the communication channel. "You have 30 minutes to evacuate your damaged ships and transfer survivors to your most intact vessels. You will then retreat beyond the quarantine boundary and never return. Any ship that deviates from this order will be destroyed. Any ship that returns to this system will be destroyed. Are we clear, Commander Kelthera?" "Yes," she whispered, too stunned for anything else. "We understand." She looked at her tactical display. Of 500 ships, only 40 were still combat capable. The rest were destroyed or so badly damaged they would have to be abandoned. Thousands were dead. An entire fleet representing 4 empires had been shattered in less than 2 hours. As her survivors limped toward the system's edge, loading every escape pod and survivor they could find, Kelthera finally understood what the elders had been trying to tell her. This wasn't about human weapons or human ships. It was about human thinking. They had taken 600 years of isolation and turned it into 600 years of preparation. They had looked at the galaxy's way of war and decided to fight differently. When the last survivor was aboard and the remaining ships crossed back into neutral space, Kelthera received one final transmission from Admiral Chen. "You came here to conquer us," he said quietly. "You thought numbers and firepower would be enough. But we've spent 6 centuries learning one lesson that you still haven't understood. In space, the winner isn't the one with the biggest guns. It's the one who controls the battlefield. This entire system is our weapon. Every rock, every ice crystal, every planet and moon. You can't conquer Earth without conquering the whole system, and we've made sure that's impossible." He paused, then continued. "Go back to your council. Tell them what happened here. Tell them that the elders were right to fear us. Not because we're monsters, but because we're very, very good at survival, and we will do whatever it takes to ensure our survival. The quarantine stays forever." The transmission ended. Kelthera sat in her command chair, watching Earth recede on her display. That beautiful blue world, surrounded by debris from the battle, protected by a people who had turned their home into an unassailable fortress. She had started this mission to prove the elders wrong. Instead, she had proven them absolutely right. And now she had to go home and explain how the combined might of 4 empires had been shattered by one species that just wanted to be left alone. The Galactic Council chamber had never been so tense. Representatives from every member species packed the viewing galleries, and the air itself seemed to vibrate with barely contained emotion. At the center podium, Commander Kelthera stood alone, her scales darker than they had been before the battle, her 4 eyes downcast. She had just finished presenting her report. Every detail of the massacre, every tactical failure, every life lost. The holographic recording showed it all. The asteroids coming alive, the missiles swarming like living creatures, the human ships appearing from nowhere to deliver death with surgical precision. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then the chamber erupted. "This is an act of war," the Zephyx ambassador roared, his voice cutting through the chaos. "They destroyed an entire fleet. Thousands dead. This aggression cannot stand." Aggression? The robed elder finally stood, and his voice carried a weight that silenced the chamber instantly. "You sent 500 warships into their home system to force their surrender. They defended themselves. That is not aggression. That is survival. They had hidden weapons," another representative argued. "Weapons of mass destruction. Technologies we didn't know existed." "Because you never asked," the elder replied coldly. "You never wondered what they were doing during 600 years of silence. You assumed they were sleeping. They were not sleeping. They were preparing for exactly this scenario. Then they're too dangerous to be left free," the Thros ambassador declared. "If one system can destroy a fleet of 500 ships, imagine what they could do if they expanded. We must act now with overwhelming force." More voices joined the call for war. The representatives of the 4 empires that had lost ships demanded vengeance. Younger species, frightened by humanity's display of power, argued for preemptive action. The chamber descended into chaos once more. Admiral Chen watched the council session from Earth, the transmission arriving through humanity's spy network with only a few minutes' delay. Around him, his staff monitored the galactic situation with growing concern. "Sir, we're detecting military buildup in 17 systems," his intelligence officer reported. "They're assembling another fleet. Preliminary estimates suggest 5,000 ships this time." Chen had expected this. Show weakness and you invite attack. Show too much strength and you become a threat that must be eliminated. Humanity had walked a careful line for 6 centuries, but now the line had broken. "How long until they can launch?" he asked. 3 months minimum. "They're pulling ships from border patrols, mothball fleets everywhere. It's the largest military mobilization in galactic history." Chen nodded slowly. 3 months. Not enough time to negotiate. Not enough time for cooler heads to prevail. The galaxy was committed to war now, driven by fear and pride in equal measure. "Then we proceed to Phase 2, he said quietly. "Operation Prometheus was always just the beginning." "Sir?" his second-in-command said carefully. "Phase 2 means going on the offensive. Are we really prepared to take that step?" Chen turned to face him. 600 years ago, we could have conquered half the galaxy. We chose peace instead. We chose isolation. We gave them every chance to leave us alone. They refused. Now we have no choice but to show them what we're capable of when we stop holding back. He activated the holographic display, showing the entire galactic arm. "We're not going to wait for them to bring 5,000 ships to our doorstep. We're going to take the fight to them. And we're going to do it in a way that makes it clear. Humanity is not a threat to be eliminated. We're a force to be respected. How, sir? By being everywhere at once. By showing them that their territory is just as vulnerable as ours. By making them understand that if they want war, we'll give them a war they can't win and can't afford to fight." Chen began issuing orders. Humanity's true fleet, the one that had been building in the outer reaches of the Sol system for generations, began moving. Thousands of ships, small and fast and deadly, equipped with experimental jump drives that could take them anywhere in the galaxy, with minimal preparation time. But ships weren't the only thing humanity had been developing. For 600 years, human agents had infiltrated the galactic community. Some were deep-cover operatives who had been living as aliens for decades, using biosynthetic disguises and extensive training. Others were sympathizers among alien species who had grown disillusioned with the Council's corruption. Now, all of them activated. In the Zephyx capital, a human agent accessed the military's central computer network and released a virus. Not a destructive one, but an informational one. Suddenly, every screen in the Empire displayed the same thing. Detailed records of Council corruption. Proof that the Zephyx leadership had been embezzling funds meant for colony development. Evidence of treaties violated and promises broken. In the Thros system, Automated probes humanity had planted decades ago began broadcasting. They revealed secret weapons testing facilities, illegal experiments on subject species, and plans to eventually subjugate younger races. Across the galaxy, humanity's information warfare campaign struck with devastating precision, not at military targets but at legitimacy. Every empire that had called for war found its dirty secrets exposed to its own people. Trust in leadership began to crumble, and then the human ships arrived. Sarah Okonkwo's vessel, the Relentless, emerged from hyperspace in the outer system of a Zephix military shipyard. With her were 20 other hunter-killer ships, all running silent, all practically invisible to standard sensors. Target acquired, her tactical officer reported. Shipyard complex, approximately 40 ships under construction. Security fleet of 12 destroyers. Remember the mission? Sarah said calmly. We're not here to destroy the shipyard. We're here to demonstrate that we could if we wanted to. Her ships moved in, using the system's debris field as cover. They penetrated to within weapons range of the shipyard without being detected. Then, instead of firing, they transmitted. Every screen in the shipyard complex suddenly showed a human face. Sarah herself broadcasting from her ship. This is Captain Okonkwo of Earth's Unified Defense Force. As you can see, we are currently within your defensive perimeter, undetected and in a position to destroy this facility. We will not do so. We are not here to kill your workers or destroy your infrastructure. We are here to deliver a message. She paused, letting that sink in. Throughout the shipyard, alarms were sounding, but it was too late. The human ships had already demonstrated their point. Your leaders have called for war with humanity. They claim we are a threat that must be eliminated. We want you to understand what that war would look like. We can reach any system, any installation, any target in your empire. We can strike and vanish before you can respond. We have spent 600 years learning every weakness of every species in the galactic community. If you force us to use that knowledge, the cost will be catastrophic. Another pause. Sarah could see the security fleet scrambling to intercept, but her ships were already preparing to jump away. We don't want war. We never wanted war. We just want to be left alone. But if you insist on trying to conquer us, exterminate us, or relocate us, we will defend ourselves. And our defense will be so overwhelming, so devastating, that your grandchildren will still be rebuilding what you destroyed by starting this conflict. She looked directly into the camera, her expression hard. Go home to your families. Talk to your leaders. Tell them that the humans were here, that we could have killed you all and we chose not to. Tell them that mercy is not weakness, and tell them that if they send another fleet to Sol, we will not be so merciful next time. The transmission ended. Sarah's ships jumped away, leaving behind a shipyard full of shocked workers and military personnel who realized how close they had come to death. This scene repeated across the galaxy. Human ships appeared in dozens of systems, always at strategic targets, always demonstrating they could strike at will, always delivering the same message. We can reach you, we can hurt you, but we're choosing not to. Yet. The effect was immediate and profound. Civilian populations who had been calling for human extermination suddenly realized that humans could exterminate them just as easily. Workers at military facilities understood that their jobs made them targets. The war that had seemed distant and righteous suddenly became personal and terrifying. In the council chamber, emergency sessions ran day and night as reports flooded in of human incursions. But something else was happening too. The information warfare campaign was bearing fruit. On dozens of worlds, protests erupted against the war. Citizens demanded to know why their leaders had provoked humanity. Opposition parties seized on the revealed corruption to challenge sitting governments. The unified front against humanity began to crack. Kelthera watched it all from her quarters, no longer trusted with command after the disaster at Sol. She had been reviewing the battle recordings obsessively, trying to understand what had gone wrong. But she finally realized nothing had gone wrong. Everything had gone exactly as the humans planned. They had let her scout the system and return safely to deliver her report. They had known that report would provoke a larger response. They had prepared the perfect trap and waited for their enemies to walk into it. And now, they were using the aftermath to divide the galaxy against itself. A message arrived on her private console, encrypted, routed through channels that shouldn't exist. She almost deleted it, but curiosity made her open it. It was from Admiral Chen. Commander Kelthera, I hope this message finds you well. I wanted you to know that I do not consider you an enemy. You are a soldier who followed orders, and you've paid for those orders with your career and your pride. I respect that. I'm contacting you because I believe you, unlike your leaders, are capable of learning. The elders tried to warn you. We tried to warn you. But sometimes people must touch the fire before they believe it burns. You've touched the fire. You know what we're capable of. Now I need you to help me prevent a larger war. Not because I'm afraid we'll lose, but because I'm afraid of what we'll have to become to win. The galaxy is gathering 5,000 ships to attack us. If they come, we will destroy them. But we won't stop there. We'll have to eliminate the capacity to build more fleets, which means striking at shipyards, industrial centers, resource extraction facilities. The death toll will be in the billions, not thousands. I don't want that. I'm betting you don't want that either. There is another way. But it requires someone in the council with the courage to speak truth, even when that truth is uncomfortable. It requires someone who can look past pride and see reality. I think you might be that person. If I'm wrong, delete this message and forget we spoke. If I'm right, respond. And let's talk about how to end this before it truly begins. The choice is yours, Commander. Kelthera stared at the message for a long time. Her career was already destroyed. Her reputation in ruins. She had nothing left to lose except her life. And at this point, she wasn't sure that was worth much. But perhaps she could do one last thing. One act of service not to her empire, but to all the civilizations that would suffer if this war continued. She began typing a response. Across the galaxy, humanity's campaign continued. Not random strikes, but calculated pressure. Exposing corruption here. Demonstrating capability there. Always walking the line between showing strength and avoiding needless casualties. It was a delicate dance, and Chen knew they couldn't maintain it forever. But they didn't need forever. They just needed long enough for reason to overcome pride. Long enough for the people of the galaxy to question why they were going to war. Long enough for leaders to realize that conquering humanity would cost more than any possible benefit. In the council chamber, the elders watched everything unfold. The robed one turned to its companions. They are being gentle, it observed. They could have struck much harder. They remember what they were, the geometric elder replied. And they fear becoming that again. But if the council forces their hand, then the galaxy will learn why we sealed away humanity 600 years ago. The first elder finished. Not to protect the humans from us, but to protect everyone from what humans become when they stop holding back. The three ancient beings sat in silence, watching the younger races stumble toward a decision that would define the next era of galactic history. They had done all they could. They had warned. They had advised. They had tried to prevent this. Now they could only watch and hope that someone, somewhere, would finally listen before it was too late. The council chamber was quieter than it had been in weeks. The initial fury had burned itself out, replaced by something more dangerous: calculation. Representatives sat in their designated sections, but the unified front that had existed after the fleet's destruction had fractured into a dozen competing interests. Kelthera stood at the central podium once more, but this time she was not there to report a failure. She was there to speak a truth that no one wanted to hear. I have been communicating with the human Admiral Chen, she began, her voice steady despite the gasps and angry mutters. Before you accuse me of treason, know that these communications were authorized by the elders themselves. She gestured to the three ancient beings who nodded in confirmation. The chamber quieted, confusion replacing anger. I have learned things about humanity that our intelligence failed to grasp, things that will determine whether we survive the next year with our civilizations intact. She activated the holographic display, showing data humanity had provided through her communications. With Chen, the chamber fell completely, silent as they absorbed what they were seeing. Humanity has been preparing for galactic war for 600 years, Kelthera continued, but not in the way we thought. Look at these numbers. Their industrial capacity, their ship construction capabilities, their resource extraction from the Oort Cloud and Kuiper Belt. They can build ships faster than we can destroy them. Much faster. More data appeared. Representatives leaned forward, studying the figures with growing horror. The fleet we lost at Sol? The ships that demonstrated humanity could reach any of our systems. Those were not their main military forces. Those were scouts, skirmishers, testing groups. Their actual war fleet has been building in the dark spaces between planets, in the outer reaches where no sensors can detect them. She pulled up another image, A shipyard, massive beyond comprehension, built into an asteroid the size of a moon, and another, and another. Dozens of them, all hidden in the Sol system's vast outer reaches. They have been building for 6 centuries. They have over 15,000 warships ready to deploy, with production facilities that can replace losses faster than we can inflict them. And these are not the large, slow dreadnoughts we favor. These are fast attack ships, designed for the kind of warfare we witnessed. Hit and run, strike from nowhere, disappear before we can respond. The chamber erupted again, but this time with fear rather than anger. But here is the most important thing I learned, Kelthera said, raising her voice. They don't want to use any of this. Admiral Chen made that very clear. Humanity has the capability to wage war across the entire galaxy simultaneously. They could strike at every major world and every empire within a single day. They could cripple our infrastructure, destroy our shipyards, eliminate our military capacity before we could mount a coordinated defense. She paused, letting that sink in. But they haven't. Every incursion they've made, every demonstration of power, has been carefully calculated to minimize casualties while maximizing impact. They've exposed our corruption not to humiliate us, but to give our own people a reason to question this war. They've demonstrated their reach not to terrorize us, but to make us understand what we're facing. Kelthera looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of representatives who had called for human extermination. Admiral Chen asked me a question during our talks. He asked, "What do you think we were doing for 600 years? Did you think we were sleeping? Regressing? Forgetting? No, we were learning. We studied every species in the galactic community. We analyzed your military tactics, your social structures, your economies, your weaknesses. We prepared for every possible scenario, and then we waited." She pulled up the final piece of data Chen had provided, a map of the galaxy with thousands of markers, each one a human intelligence asset, a planted probe, a sleeper agent, a strategic position. This is what they've been doing. They've been everywhere, watching everything, preparing for the day someone would break the quarantine. They knew it would happen eventually. They knew we would come, and they were ready. The Zephix ambassador stood abruptly. "Then we have no choice. If they're this prepared, this dangerous, we must strike with everything we have. 5,000 ships, 10,000, whatever it takes. To what end?" The robed elder finally spoke, standing from its position. "Young one, you still don't understand. Commander Kelthera has just explained that humanity can outproduce us, outmaneuver us, and strike at will anywhere in our territory. What do you think happens when you send 10,000 ships to Sol?" The elder gestured and a new hologram appeared, a simulation. "This is what happens. Your fleet enters the Sol system. Humanity springs another trap, destroying perhaps half your ships. The survivors retreat. You celebrate the casualties you inflicted, claim victory in a battle. But while you're rebuilding that fleet, humanity's 15,000 warships deploy to your space. The simulation showed human ships spreading across the galaxy like a plague, striking at targets simultaneously. They don't need to conquer planets. They don't need to occupy territory. They just need to destroy your capacity to build more ships, your shipyards, your factories, your resource operations. Within weeks, your military-industrial complex is crippled. Within months, you cannot defend yourselves, and humanity still has most of its fleet intact." The geometric elder took over. "You cannot win a war of attrition against a species that spent 600 years preparing for exactly that scenario. You cannot win a war of production against a species that turned their entire solar system into a factory. You cannot win a war of intelligence against a species that has been studying you for centuries while you ignored them." "Then what do we do?" someone shouted from the gallery. "Surrender? Let them dictate terms?" "No." Admiral Chen's voice suddenly filled the chamber. Every screen activated simultaneously, showing his face. "You do what you should have done from the beginning. You leave us alone." The chamber exploded in outrage at the intrusion, but Chen continued speaking, his voice cutting through the noise. "I hacked into your council systems to deliver this message personally, because I want there to be no misunderstanding, no misinterpretation. Humanity does not want your territory. We don't want your resources. We don't want to rule over other species or build an empire. We want exactly what we wanted 600 years ago, to be left alone." He gestured and the view shifted to show Earth from orbit, beautiful and blue. "This is our home. This system is our home. We have no desire to expand beyond it. We've had 600 years to build colony ships to spread to the stars to claim territory. We didn't. Do you know why? Silence. Because we learned our lesson from the first contact war. We learned that when humanity spreads out, when we compete with other species for resources and territory, conflict becomes inevitable. And when we fight to win, no matter the cost. We didn't like what we became during that war. We didn't like the things we had to do to survive. Chen's expression softened slightly, so we made a choice. We chose to stay home. To build deep rather than wide. To turn our solar system into a paradise rather than conquering others. We've spent 6 centuries creating a civilization we're proud of, and we will defend it with everything we have. But we have no interest in threatening anyone who doesn't threaten us first. He leaned forward, his eyes intense. Here's what I'm proposing. A new treaty. The quarantine remains, but with modifications. We will maintain our isolation, but we will establish a single diplomatic station at the boundary. Any species that wishes to trade with us, learn from us, or simply communicate with us may do so there. Peacefully, respectfully. And if we refuse? The Zephyx ambassador demanded. Then you send your 5,000 ships, Chen replied flatly. We destroy them. You send 10,000 ships. We destroy them too, and then we eliminate your ability to build more. You try to wage total war against us, and we wage total war back. And when the smoke clears, humanity will still be here and your civilizations will be smoking ruins. He let that hang in the air. But I don't think that's what anyone really wants. I've been monitoring your internal communications. Your people are protesting the war. Your economies are suffering from military mobilization. Your governments are fracturing over the corruption we exposed. You're already paying a price for this conflict, and the real war hasn't even started. Chen's voice softened. I'm giving you a way out. A way to end this without losing billions of lives and centuries of progress. Take it. Please. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then the robed elders stood. The elders support this proposal. We should have done this 600 years ago instead of simply sealing humanity away. Isolation was born of fear, and fear breeds resentment and misunderstanding. A diplomatic station, a single point of controlled contact, is wisdom. Seconded, said several older species almost immediately. But the younger species, led by the 4 empires that had lost ships, hesitated. Pride warred with pragmatism in their expressions. Kelthara, still at the podium, made a decision. She reached up and removed her rank insignia, placing them on the podium. I was the one who started this, she said quietly. I refused to heed the elders' warnings. I insisted on the scouting mission. I advocated for the military response. Every death in this conflict traces back to my arrogance and ambition. She looked directly at the Zephyx ambassador. I resign my commission. I accept full responsibility for the disaster. But before I leave this chamber, I will say one final thing. Do not make my mistake. Do not let pride destroy our civilization. The humans are offering peace with honor. Take it. She turned and walked toward the exit. As she reached the door, the robed elder spoke. Commander Kelthara, you do not need to resign. You have shown true wisdom today, and wisdom is earned through mistakes acknowledged and learned from. Your people will need leaders who understand humanity in the years to come. Stay. Kelthara paused, then slowly returned to the podium, though she did not pick up her insignia. The debate that followed lasted for 3 days. Arguments raged back and forth. The military mobilization continued even as diplomats searched for compromise. But slowly, inevitably, the weight of reality overcame pride. On the 3rd day, the vote was called. The proposal passed by a significant margin. The quarantine would become a boundary, with a single diplomatic station. Humanity would maintain its isolation but agree to limited contact. Neither side would enter the other's space without explicit permission. When the results were announced, Admiral Chen appeared on the screens again. Thank you, he said simply. We will begin construction of the diplomatic station immediately. It will be complete within 6 months. We look forward to establishing peaceful relations with any species that wishes to engage with us in good faith. He paused, then added, and to the elders, thank you for trying to prevent this conflict. We understand now that you were trying to protect everyone, not just us. We hope that going forward we can work together to build a better galaxy." The transmission ended. The council chamber slowly emptied as representatives returned to their homeworlds to explain to their people why they had chosen peace over war. Kelthera found herself approached by the robed elder as she prepared to leave. "You did well today," it said. "You learned the lesson we hoped you would learn, though I wish you could have learned it without so much pain." "Why didn't you just tell us?" Kelthera asked. "Why all the cryptic warnings and vague fears? If you had explained everything from the start, would you have listened?" the elder interrupted gently. "Or would you have thought us paranoid and overcautious, as you did anyway? Some lessons cannot be taught, young one. They must be experienced." Kelthera nodded slowly, understanding. "What happens now?" Now we begin the hard work of building trust where there was only fear. Humanity will emerge from isolation gradually. They will share some of their knowledge, though not all of it. They will trade, though carefully. And over time, perhaps in a few centuries, they will truly join the galactic community as equals, rather than as prisoners or threats. Will it work? The elder smiled, an expression that looked strange on its ancient face. That depends on whether both sides can remember this lesson. Humanity must remember that they chose peace not because they were weak, but because they were strong enough to choose it. And we must remember that some species are best approached with respect rather than demands. The elder turned to leave, then paused. "One more thing, Kelthera. You asked earlier what humanity was doing for 600 years. Now you know. But do you know what we elders were doing during that time?" "No," Kelthera admitted. "Waiting," the elder said softly. "Waiting for a species like humanity to emerge, one that could challenge the old order, force change upon a galaxy grown stagnant. We have been shepherds for too long. The younger races need to learn to walk on their own. Humanity, for all their danger, may be exactly what the galaxy needs." With that, the elder departed, leaving Kelthera alone with her thoughts. 6 months later, the diplomatic station opened. It was a marvel of combined technology, human efficiency married to alien aesthetics. Representatives from dozens of species arrived to establish trade relationships, cultural exchanges, and research partnerships. Captain Sarah Okonkwo was assigned as the military liaison for the station. On her first day, she found herself face-to-face with Kelthera, who had been assigned as the Zephix representative. The two officers regarded each other carefully, each remembering the battle at Sol where they had been enemies. "I destroyed 3 of your ships," Sarah said quietly. "Killed hundreds of your people. And I invaded your home," Kelthera replied. "Forced you to defend yourselves with lethal force." They stood in awkward silence for a moment. Then Kelthera extended her hand in the human gesture of greeting she had learned. "Perhaps we can do better this time." Sarah took her hand, shaking it firmly. "Perhaps we can." Years passed. The diplomatic station grew, adding research facilities and cultural centers. Human technology began spreading through the galaxy, carefully controlled but eagerly sought. Alien art, philosophy, and science flowed into the Sol system, enriching human culture. Admiral Chen, now elderly and preparing to retire, stood on the observation deck of the station, looking out at the stars. The robed elder materialized beside him, as it occasionally did for these conversations. "Any regrets?" the elder asked. "Thousands," Chen admitted. "I wish we could have avoided the bloodshed. I wish Kelthera hadn't needed to learn her lesson the hard way. I wish the galaxy had simply accepted the elder's wisdom. But I'm glad it ended as it did. Better a small war now than a large one later. And I think perhaps we're building something good here. Something that might last," the elder nodded. "The galaxy is changing. In another century, species that never met humanity will join the community. They will grow up knowing humans as partners, not threats. The memory of this conflict will fade into history, becoming just another story about the foolishness of pride." "Is that good or bad?" Chen asked. "Both," the elder replied. "Good, because it means peace has become normal. Bad, because those who forget history are doomed to repeat it. But that is the cycle. We elders will be here to remember and to warn the next generation when they grow too confident." Chen smiled. "And humanity will be here in our system, maintaining our boundaries and our preparedness, just in case someone else refuses to acknowledge the warnings. Exactly, the elder said. You have become what we hoped for. A balance. Strong enough to defend yourselves, wise enough to choose peace when possible. The galaxy needs species like yours. They stood in comfortable silence, watching as ships from a dozen different species docked at the station. Humans and aliens working together, trading not just goods but ideas, art, and dreams. Down in the station's main concourse, Kelthera walked with a group of young diplomats on a tour. They were new arrivals, species that had joined the community after the conflict, and they listened with wide eyes as she told the story. So you actually invaded Earth? One of them asked, awestruck. The Sol system, Kelthera corrected. We never reached Earth itself. And yes, I led a portion of the fleet that attempted to force humanity's surrender. What was it like, fighting humans? Kelthera paused at a viewing window, looking out at the stars. In the distance, she could just make out the yellow glow of Sol, humanity's sun. Terrifying, she said honestly. Not because they were cruel or monstrous, but because they were so prepared. Every move we made, they had anticipated. Every tactic we tried, they had countered. It was like fighting an opponent who had studied us for years while we barely knew they existed. Do you hate them? Another diplomat asked. For defeating you? No, Kelthera said, surprising herself with how true it was. I respect them. They could have annihilated our fleet completely. They could have pursued us and destroyed our shipyards, our colonies, our homeworlds. They had the capability, but they chose to let us retreat. They chose mercy when they could have chosen vengeance. She turned to face the young diplomats. That's the lesson I learned. Strength without mercy is tyranny, but mercy without strength is weakness. Humanity has both, and that makes them worth respecting, worth learning from, and worth having as friends rather than enemies. One of the diplomats pulled out a data pad. I read that humans have a saying about this. Something about sleeping giants. Kelthera smiled, a gesture she had learned from humans. Yes, let sleeping giants lie, but the truth is humanity was never sleeping. They were just resting, waiting, watching, and when we forced them to wake up, we learned a valuable lesson about the difference between dormant and dead. In a classroom on Earth, a teacher stood before a group of children, explaining the history of the conflict of awakening, as it had come to be known. And so, the teacher concluded, after 600 years of isolation, humanity rejoined the galactic community. Not as conquerors, not as victims, but as equals. We showed the galaxy that we could defend ourselves, but more importantly, we showed them that we could choose peace even when we had the power to choose war. A small hand raised. Teacher, why did we wait so long? If we were so strong, why didn't we just take over? The teacher smiled. Because, Michael, being strong doesn't mean you have to use that strength. True power is knowing when not to fight. We could have conquered the galaxy, but what would we have gained? Territory we didn't need? Resources we already had? Enemies we didn't want? So we stayed home because we were happy here? Another child asked. Exactly. Earth is our home. This system is our home. We built something wonderful here and we were content with it. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stay where you are and protect what you love, rather than always seeking more. But we did fight when they came, Michael pointed out. Yes, the teacher acknowledged. Because protecting your home is different from conquering someone else's. When you fight to defend what you love, that's not aggression. That's survival, and humanity has always been very good at survival. The lesson ended, and the children filed out to the playground. Through the windows, they could see the blue sky of Earth, with artificial satellites and orbital stations visible as tiny dots. Most of those stations now included alien visitors, researchers, and diplomats. Earth had changed, but it was still home. In the council chamber, now reformed and restructured with human representatives sitting among the other species, a new proposal was being discussed. A joint exploration mission to a distant galaxy, one that would include ships and crew from 20 different species, including humanity. The human representative, Ambassador James Okoro, listened carefully to the arguments before speaking. Humanity supports this mission, he said, but we propose one addition to the charter. Any species we encounter in that distant galaxy should be approached with respect and caution. We should learn from them, not immediately assume we have the right to interfere in their development. You speak from experience, an elder observed. We do, James agreed. We remember what it was like when the galaxy first contacted us. We remember the assumptions made, the condescension, the failure to truly listen. We don't want to be that species for someone else. The proposal was amended and passed. The mission would launch in 2 years, with a carefully selected crew trained in first contact protocols that emphasized respect over efficiency. As the session ended, James found himself walking with the robed elder through the station's gardens, a section maintained by both human and alien botanists, where plants from dozens of worlds grew together. "Do you think we've changed the galaxy?" James asked. "You have," the elder replied, "but perhaps not in the way you think. The greatest change wasn't in your technology or your military demonstrations. It was in your example." "What do you mean?" "For thousands of years, the pattern has been the same. Species join the community. They conform to established norms. They compete for resources and influence within the existing structure. You broke that pattern. You showed that it's possible to maintain your identity, your independence, while still cooperating with others. You proved that saying no to the galaxy doesn't mean saying no to civilization." The elder paused beside a human rosebush, growing next to an alien plant with bioluminescent flowers. Many younger species watched what happened with humanity. They saw you defend yourself successfully. They saw you refuse to be bullied or relocated. And now, some of them are starting to question whether they need to give up so much of their autonomy to be part of the community. You've inspired a revolution, though a peaceful one. "Is that good?" James asked, concerned. "We don't want to destabilize the galaxy." "It's necessary," the elder corrected. The old order was stagnant. We elders maintained peace, but it was the peace of control, not cooperation. The galaxy needs to grow beyond us, and humanity has shown a path forward. It won't be easy, and there will be conflicts as species renegotiate their relationships with the community. But it will be worth it. And you're okay with that? With becoming less relevant? The elder smiled, that strange expression on its ancient face. "We have been the galaxy's guardians for 10,000 years. We're tired. We're ready to step back and let the younger races find their own way. Humanity has proven that's possible. Now others will follow your example, and the galaxy will be stronger for it." Back on Earth, Admiral Chen sat in his retirement home, a modest house overlooking the Pacific Ocean. He was 80 now, his hair white, his body tired. But his mind was still sharp, and he often spent his evenings reviewing reports from the diplomatic station, keeping track of the galaxy he had helped reshape. A message arrived on his personal console. It was from Kelthera. "Admiral Chen, I hope this message finds you well. I wanted you to know that the Zephix Empire is establishing a military academy program based on human tactics and strategy. We're calling it the Chen Protocol, in honor of your role in teaching us that preparation and patience are more valuable than pride and aggression. Several other species are implementing similar programs. You've changed not just our politics but our entire approach to security and defense. Thank you for the lesson, even though it was painful to learn. May you enjoy your retirement in peace. You've earned it." Chen smiled and typed a simple response. "The best victories are the ones where everyone survives to learn from them. Enjoy the peace you helped build." He sent the message and turned to look out at the ocean. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. In orbit above, he knew the defensive platforms were still active, still watching, still ready. Humanity had not forgotten the lessons of preparedness even in peacetime. But they had also not forgotten the most important lesson of all, that the greatest strength was choosing when not to fight. Years turned into decades. The diplomatic station grew into a small city in space. Humans and aliens lived and worked together, their children playing in corridors that reflected both Earth's design sensibilities and alien aesthetics. Cultural exchange flourished. Human music incorporated alien instruments. Alien art began incorporating human perspectives. And slowly, carefully, humanity began expanding beyond Sol. Not in a rush of colonization, but in a measured, deliberate way. Always with permission, always in cooperation with the galactic community. A science station here, a joint research facility there. Never claiming territory, always contributing to the common good. The elders watched it all and were satisfied. Their long vigil was coming to an end. The galaxy no longer needed ancient guardians. It had found its own way forward, led by species that had learned to balance strength with wisdom. On the 50th anniversary of the conflict of awakening, a memorial was unveiled at the diplomatic station. It listed the names of everyone who had died in the fighting, the 10 humans killed in the initial attack, the thousands of aliens lost in the battles that followed. At the bottom, a simple inscription in both human and galactic standard script. We remember those who died so that others might learn. May their sacrifice teach us that peace is always worth choosing when strength gives us the choice to make. Kelthera stood at the memorial with Sarah Okonkwo. Both of them now retired but still friends after decades of working together. They placed flowers at the base, a human tradition that had spread to other species. Do you think it will last? Kelthera asked. This peace? As long as people remember why it exists, Sarah replied. As long as we remember what the alternative costs. They stood in silence for a moment, then Kelthera spoke again. I've been writing a book about the conflict, about what I learned. I wanted to ask your permission to include your perspective. What's the title? Sarah asked. Kelthera smiled. The Elders warned, a history of humanity's awakening and the galaxy that learned to listen. Sarah laughed. It's a bit long but accurate. Yes, you have my permission. Tell the story, all of it. The mistakes, the fear, the pride, and the eventual wisdom. Maybe it will help the next generation avoid repeating our errors. That's what I hope, Kelthera agreed. They left the memorial together. Two old soldiers who had become friends walking through a station that symbolized everything they had fought for and nearly destroyed. Behind them, the memorial stood as a reminder. War is easy to start and hard to end, but peace, while difficult to build, is always worth the effort. In the Sol system, Earth continued its eternal rotation. Humanity had awakened from its long silence, not as conquerors or victims, but as a people who had learned that true strength lies not in dominating others, but in defending what you love and choosing peace when you have the power to choose otherwise. The Elders had warned them not to awaken humanity. Someone had refused to acknowledge those warnings, and the galaxy had learned a lesson it would not soon forget. Some sleeping giants are better left undisturbed, but if you must wake them, hope that they are wise enough to show mercy when they could have shown wrath. The story of humanity's awakening became legend, passed down through generations, and whenever young species grew arrogant, whenever leaders contemplated aggression, someone would always tell the tale of Earth, the death world that chose silence, and the galaxy that learned too late to respect that choice. But they learned, and that made all the difference. The loud beep from the communication console broke the quiet on the bridge of the UES Vanguard. Lieutenant Dan Baker looked up from his station, eyes wide. Commander Reynolds, we're getting something strange on the long-range scanner, he called. Out. Commander Jack Reynolds put down his coffee mug and walked over. The Vanguard was humanity's first true deep space vessel, built to patrol the edges of the solar system. 6 months into their mission, the crew had settled into a routine of endless stars and empty space. Until now. What do you have, Baker? Reynolds asked, leaning over the console. Sir, it's not one of ours. Baker's fingers moved across the screen, bringing up a sound wave pattern. It's repeating every 12 seconds. Definitely not natural. Reynolds felt his heart. Rate pick up. Are you saying what I think you're saying? Baker nodded slowly. Yes, sir. I believe this is a signal. An artificial signal. And it's coming from the Tau Ceti system. The bridge went silent. 12 light years away, something or someone was broadcasting. Put it through the speakers, Reynolds ordered. A strange sound filled the bridge. It wasn't random noise. It had patterns, rises and falls, almost like a language, but unlike anything human. How long has it been transmitting? Reynolds asked. Based on the signal degradation, at least 3 months, sir. Reynolds straightened up. Send this to Earth immediately. Priority 1. 3 days later, Reynolds stood in a video conference with the United Earth Council. The faces of 12 men and women looked back at him from screens around the room. We've analyzed the signal, said Dr. Emma Turner, Earth's leading expert on communication theory. It's definitely a distress call. The pattern shows all the markers we would expect. Repetition, increasing urgency, and embedded location data. So someone out there is asking for help, said General Wilson, the military representative. Yes, Turner replied. And they're in trouble. Council President Maria Garcia leaned forward. Commander Reynolds, your ship is the closest to the edge of our system. How quickly could you reach Tau Ceti? Reynolds had been expecting this question. With conventional drives? About 120 years. The faces on the screens fell. However, Reynolds continued, "There is another option. The Bell Laboratory has been testing an experimental faster-than-light drive. It's never been used on a ship this size, but the math checks out. If we install it on the Vanguard, we could reach Tau Ceti in 3 weeks." The council members looked at each other. "That technology hasn't been fully tested," General Wilson objected. "True," Reynolds agreed. "But we're talking about first contact with an alien civilization. An alien civilization that needs our help. I think that's worth the risk." The debate lasted for hours. Some council members argued for caution. Others saw an opportunity to establish humanity as a helpful, peaceful species. General Wilson had the final word. "If we go ready for anything. This could be exactly what it seems, a cry for help, or it could be a trap. Mankind's first step into the stars should be with our best foot forward, but also with our hand near our weapon." President Garcia called for a vote. The result 8-4 in favor of the mission. "Commander Reynolds," she said, "you have new orders. The Vanguard will be fitted with the FTL drive. You will proceed to the Tau Ceti system, investigate the distress signal, and render aid if possible. But your primary mission remains the safety of your crew and the interests of Earth." Reynolds nodded. "Understood, Madam President." 2 weeks later, the Vanguard looked very different. Engineers had worked day and night to install the experimental FTL drive. The ship had also received weapons upgrades, just in case. Reynolds addressed his crew of 50 in the main bay. Men and women who had signed up to patrol the solar system now found themselves about to make history. "In a few hours we will become the first humans to travel faster than light, the first to leave our solar system, and possibly the first to meet beings from another world," Reynolds said. His voice echoed in the large room. "We don't know what we'll find at Tau Ceti. We're answering a call for help, but we're going in prepared for anything. Earth is counting on us to be both diplomats and defenders." He looked at the faces watching him. Engineers, scientists, and yes, soldiers too. The best Earth had to offer. What the aliens don't know is that we come from what scientists now call a death world. Earth's gravity is strong. Our weather can kill. Our planet has earthquakes, volcanoes, hurricanes. We evolved fighting for survival every day. We've been prey, become predators, and fought wars against ourselves that nearly ended our species. He paused, letting his words sink in. "But we also built art, music, and cities. We cured diseases and learned to work together. We reached for the stars. Whatever is waiting for us at Tau Ceti, they're about to meet a species that knows both war and peace better than most. We will help if we can, but we will also survive whatever happens." The crew nodded. They understood. Chief Engineer Lily Chen stood next to the new FTL drive, watching the power levels rise. "It's holding steady, Commander," she reported through her comlink. "The containment field is at 98% efficiency." On the bridge, Reynolds nodded. "Good. Begin final countdown." The ship's AI started counting down from 10. Reynolds looked at the main screen, where the stars shone cold and distant. Somewhere out there, someone was calling for help, and humanity was answering. 3, 2, 1. Engaging FTL drive. The Vanguard shuddered. Outside, space itself seemed to bend. Stars stretched into lines of light. Then, with a flash that temporarily blinded the external cameras, the ship punched through the light barrier. They were on their way. The first day in FTL was tense. No one knew if the experimental drive would hold. But as hours turned into days, the crew began to relax. The ship moved through space faster than anyone had thought possible, stable and strong. Reynolds spent most of his time reviewing what they knew about Tau Ceti. The star was similar to Earth's sun, just slightly smaller and older. Scans had shown planets orbiting it, including some in what scientists called the habitable zone, where water could exist as a liquid. If there's life there, it probably evolved under conditions similar to Earth, Science Officer Mike Turner told him. But maybe with less gravity, fewer storms, a gentler world. Reynolds considered this. So whoever sent that distress signal might not be used to fighting for survival the way we are. Turner nodded. Exactly. If they developed on a more stable planet, they might never have needed to develop the same aggressive instincts that humans have. This thought stayed with Reynolds as the days passed. He found himself wondering what kind of creatures they might meet. Would they understand concepts like war and defense, or would they be completely peaceful, unprepared for whatever danger now threatened them? On the night before their scheduled arrival, Reynolds couldn't sleep. He went to the observation deck, now restored to normal function as they prepared to drop out of FTL. The room was dark except for the glow of control panels. To his surprise, he wasn't alone. Lieutenant Anna Foster, the ship's xenolinguist, stood by the large window. "Trouble sleeping, Lieutenant?" Reynolds asked. Foster turned. "Just thinking, sir. Tomorrow we might become the first humans to speak with an alien intelligence. Everything I've trained for, and I still don't know if I'm ready." Reynolds moved to stand beside her. "None of us are truly ready. This is bigger than any training." "Do you think they'll be afraid of us?" Foster asked quietly. Reynolds thought about Earth, about its long history of predators and prey, storms and earthquakes, wars and peace treaties. "Probably," he said honestly. "We come from a world that shaped us to be survivors, fighters. But we're also explorers and helpers. We're answering their call because that's also who we are." He looked out at the stars rushing past. "Tomorrow they get all of us. Our strength and our compassion, our teeth and our helping hands." Foster nodded slowly. "I hope they understand that we come as friends." "So do I, Lieutenant." Reynolds said. "So do I." As the ship sped toward its destination, carrying humanity's first ambassadors to the stars, the alien distress signal continued to pulse ahead of them. A cry for help about to be answered by creatures from a world that had taught them both ruthlessness and kindness, often in the same breath. The Death Worlders were coming. Dropping out of FTL in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The Vanguard shuddered as it returned to normal space. The stars stopped being streaks of light and became points again. The main screen on the bridge adjusted to show their new surroundings. "Status, report," Commander Reynolds ordered, gripping his chair. Lieutenant Baker checked his screens. "All systems functional, sir. Minor power fluctuations in the engine room, but Chief Chen says they're within acceptable limits." "Location?" Science Officer Turner studied his readouts. "Confirmed, sir. We've arrived at the edge of the Tau Ceti system." A cheer went up from the crew. They had made it. Mankind's first faster-than-light journey was a success. Reynolds allowed himself a small smile before refocusing. "Lieutenant Foster, is the distress signal still active?" Foster touched her earpiece, listening. "Yes, sir. Much stronger now. Coming from the third planet in the system. On screen." The main display changed to show a blue-green world with 2 small moons. It looked surprisingly like Earth, but with more ocean and less land. "Scan the planet," Reynolds ordered. Turner worked his console. "Sir, I'm detecting multiple artificial structures on the surface and in orbit. This is definitely a technologically advanced civilization." "Any signs of what might be causing the distress?" Turner frowned. "There appears to be damage to several orbital stations, and..." He paused, adjusting his instruments. "Sir, there's a battle happening on the far side of the planet." Reynolds leaned forward. "Show me." The screen shifted again. Now they could see several sleek silver ships exchanging fire with smaller, darker vessels. The battle wasn't going well for the silver ships. They moved in defensive patterns, clearly trying to protect the planet below. But the dark ships were faster and more aggressive. "Can we identify who's who?" Reynolds asked. Foster worked at her station. "The silver ships are broadcasting the same signature as the distress call. The dark ships aren't communicating at all, at least not on any frequencies we can detect. So the locals are under attack," Reynolds said quietly. He turned to his tactical officer. "Lieutenant Wolf, what's your assessment?" Wolf studied the battle with professional interest. "The silver ships have advanced technology, but their tactics are basic. They fight like people who haven't done much fighting. The dark ships are fewer in number but much more effective. Almost like they were built specifically for combat. Reynolds nodded. This matched what they had guessed about a species evolving on a more peaceful world. They might never have needed to develop the art of war the way humans had. "Sir," Foster called out, "I've been working on decoding their language based on mathematical patterns in their distress signal. I think I can translate some of their communications now." "Put it through." A strange voice filled the bridge, speaking in musical tones. Foster listened carefully, then began to translate. They're saying, "Please retreat to defensive position 4. The harvesters have broken through Sector 7. We cannot hold them much longer. All civilian ships evacuate immediately." Reynolds made his decision. "Lieutenant Baker, take us closer but maintain a safe distance. Lieutenant Wolf, battle stations. Power up weapons but do not target anything yet. Let's get a better look at the situation before we commit." The Vanguard moved deeper into the system, approaching the battle. As they got closer, their sensors provided more details. "Sir," Turner reported, "the silver ships appear to be protecting several civilian evacuation vessels. The dark ships, these harvesters, are trying to cut them off." Reynolds studied the tactical display. "They haven't noticed us yet. We have the element of surprise." Just then, Foster straightened at her station. "Sir, I'm receiving a directed communication. They've spotted us." "On screen," Reynolds ordered. The main display showed the interior of what appeared to be the command center of one of the silver ships. The aliens looked almost human, but with pale blue skin, large eyes, and no visible hair. The one in the center wore what might be a uniform. Foster's translation software kicked in, converting the aliens' musical speech into English. "Unknown vessel. We are the Nalari. Our world is under attack by automated harvester units. They show no mercy and take everything in their path. Please, if you have weapons, help us defend our evacuation ships. If not, flee while you can." Reynolds stood up. "This is Commander Jack Reynolds of the Earthship Vanguard. We received your distress call and have come to render assistance. Please transmit tactical data to coordinate our response." The aliens' large eyes widened. You came from another star? To help us?" "That's correct. We're prepared to engage the enemy immediately." The alien commander seemed stunned for a moment, then quickly recovered. "Sending tactical data now. The harvesters target life forms and resources. They are machines with no crew. Destroying them harms no living beings." "Understood," Reynolds said. "Vanguard out." He turned to his tactical officer. "Lieutenant Wolf, you have the firing solutions?" Wolf nodded, studying the incoming data. "Yes, sir. The harvesters are focusing on the civilian ships. They don't seem to have noticed us as a threat yet. Then let's keep it that way until we're ready to strike. Bring us around to this position." Reynolds pointed to a spot on the tactical display. "We'll hit them from behind while they're focused on the civilians." The Vanguard moved silently into position. From this angle, they could see more clearly what was happening. The harvester ships were attaching themselves to damaged Nalari vessels, cutting into them with precision tools. "They're not just destroying them," Turner observed. "They're harvesting materials, taking parts of the ships and possibly the crew." Reynolds' face hardened. "Lieutenant Wolf, target the nearest harvester vessel attacking a civilian ship. Fire when ready." Wolf pressed the firing control. The Vanguard's main weapon, a high-energy particle beam designed to cut through asteroids for mining operations, lashed out. It struck the nearest harvester ship, cutting it nearly in half. The harvester exploded in a shower of metal and sparks. For a moment, everything seemed to pause. Then, as one, the remaining harvester ships turned toward the Vanguard. "They've noticed us," Baker said unnecessarily. "Good," Reynolds replied. "Lieutenant Wolf, target the next one." "Lieutenant Baker, evasive maneuvers. Let's show them what a ship from Earth can do." The Vanguard twisted in space, dodging the first counterattack from the harvesters. The human ship was heavier than the Nalari vessels, built to withstand the stronger gravity humans were used to. But that also made it tougher, better armored. Wolf fired again, destroying a second harvester. then a third. On the screens they could see the Nilari ships regrouping, seemingly encouraged by the Vanguard's success. They began to fight back more effectively. "Sir," Foster reported, "the Nilari commander is hailing us again." The blue-skinned alien appeared on screen looking both grateful and amazed. "Your ship, it's incredible. How are you destroying them so easily?" Reynolds gave a grim smile. "Where we come from, we've had to learn how to fight to survive. Now let's finish this. Have your civilian ships retreat to safety. We'll handle the remaining harvesters." The largest harvester ship, seeing its smaller units destroyed, began to turn away from the planet. "They're trying to escape," Wolf reported. "Not today," Reynolds said firmly. "Lieutenant Wolf, disable their engines. I want that ship intact if possible. Let's find out where these harvesters come from, and make sure they don't bother the Nilari." Again, the Vanguard fired a precision shot that crippled the harvester ship's propulsion system. It drifted helplessly in space. "Sir," Foster called out, "the Nilari are cheering on all channels. They're calling us, I don't know how to translate it exactly. Something like, the strong ones from the deadly star." Reynolds looked out at the view screen, where the disabled harvester ship floated against the backdrop of stars. In less than 20 minutes, the Vanguard had changed the course of a battle the Nilari had been losing for days. "Send a message to the Nilari commander," Reynolds said. "Tell them that humanity is glad to help and that we'd like to send a team to board that disabled harvester ship." Baker looked up in surprise. "We're going to board it, sir?" Reynolds nodded. "The more we learn about these harvesters, the better. We can protect both our worlds. And I think it's time we showed our new friends that humans don't just have powerful ships. We know how to fight up close too." As the Vanguard moved toward the disabled harvester, the crew prepared for the next phase of their mission, bringing humanity's unique skills directly to the enemy. "Boarding team, report to the launch bay." Lieutenant Tom Wilson adjusted his combat suit one last time before heading out. The suit was heavy by normal standards, built to protect humans in environments much harsher than a ship's interior. But Wilson had trained in Earth's gravity and the weight felt natural to him. 5 other Marines joined him, each checking their weapons and equipment. They would be the first humans to set foot on an alien vessel. History in the making, though. None of them had time to think about that now. Commander Reynolds met them in the launch bay. "Remember, this is primarily an intelligence-gathering mission. We need to learn what these harvesters are and where they come from. If possible, capture their command systems intact." Wilson nodded. "Yes, sir. We're ready." Reynolds looked at the team, his face serious. "The Nilari are watching. Show them what humans can do." From the bridge of the main Nilari ship, Commander Riln watched the small shuttle launch from the human vessel. It looked bulky and reinforced compared to Nilari craft. "Are they really going to board the harvester?" asked his second-in-command, Tala. "We've lost 20 soldiers trying that in previous attacks." Riln's large eyes blinked slowly. "They seem very confident. Their ship defeated 3 harvesters in minutes when we've been fighting them for days." "What kind of world produces such creatures?" Tala wondered. Riln had no answer. The humans moved like nothing he had ever seen before, decisive, efficient, and somehow dangerous even when helping. The human shuttle locked onto the harvester ship with magnetic clamps. Lieutenant Wilson led his team to the airlock. "Weapons ready. Atmosphere reads as vacuum. Suits sealed and checked," reported Corporal May, monitoring her wrist display. Wilson nodded. "Breach in 3, 2, 1. They blew the outer door and entered the harvester ship. Inside was dark, with only emergency lighting casting red shadows across metal corridors. "Movement ahead," whispered Sergeant Owen, his helmet sensors picking up motion. "Looks like internal defense units." 3 mechanical figures rounded the corner. They walked on 2 legs but were clearly machines, with various tools where hands should be. "Weapons free," Wilson ordered. "Take them down." The Marines fired with practiced precision. 2 of the robots fell immediately. The third charged forward, a cutting tool extending from its arm. Private Cooper stepped forward, his suit's enhanced strength letting him catch the machine's arm before it could strike. He twisted, tearing the limb off completely, then smashed, The robot against the wall. Hallway clear, Cooper reported calmly. Wilson nodded. Move to the central chamber. Stay tight. The team moved through the ship in formation, covering each other with a coordination that came from endless drills. When more defense units appeared, the Marines took them down quickly, using both ranged weapons and, when necessary, brutal, hand-to-hand combat. Their suits, designed to protect humans in the crushing pressure of Jupiter's moons, made them nearly invulnerable to the Harvester's weapons. What would have killed a Nalari soldier barely scratched the reinforced armor. Central chamber ahead, May reported, checking her scanner. Large power signature. Likely the main control system. Wilson held up his hand, signaling the team to stop. Breach Plan Alpha. May set charges on the door. Owen and Cooper first in, Reed and Jackson cover the rear. Everyone moved into position with practiced efficiency. The door blew open and the Marines stormed in, securing the room in seconds. In the center was a glowing column, the Harvester's central processor. Target secured, Wilson reported back to the Vanguard. Beginning data extraction now. On the Nalari command ship, Riln and his officers watched video feed from the human boarding team, transmitted by the Vanguard as a gesture of cooperation. Look how they move, one officer said in awe. Always in protection formation. Always covering each other's backs. And the way they fight, added another. No hesitation, no wasted motion. Riln studied the humans closely. These are not just warriors. This is something deeper. They move like predators. Tala looked troubled. What kind of world creates beings that fight like this? Lieutenant Foster was continuing her work translating the Nalari language when Science Officer Turner approached her station. The Nalari are fascinated by our boarding team, Turner said quietly. Foster nodded. I've been monitoring their communications. They keep using a word that translates roughly as born hunters or natural predators when referring to us. That makes sense, Turner replied. Their evolutionary history is very different from ours. Their planet has stable weather, lower gravity, and few large predators. They developed intelligence through cooperation, not competition or survival pressure. Foster considered this. So they never needed to learn to fight the way we did? Exactly. Earth shaped us into survivors. We had to be stronger, faster, more aggressive just to live another day. The Nalari never faced those challenges. On the main screen, they could see Wilson's team efficiently working to extract data from the Harvester's systems. What seemed routine to the humans was apparently extraordinary to the Nalari. 2 hours later, the boarding team returned to the Vanguard with the Harvester's central processor and several memory units. The mission had been a complete success, with no human casualties. Commander Reynolds met Wilson in the hangar bay. Good work, Lieutenant. Wilson removed his helmet. Thank you, sir. These Harvesters aren't designed to deal with serious resistance. Their internal defenses are meant for unarmored targets. Like the Nalari, Reynolds noted. Yes, sir. The whole ship is built for efficiency, not combat. It's a collection machine, not a true warship. Reynolds nodded. Get that processor to the science lab. I want to know everything about these Harvesters as soon as possible. In the science lab, Turner and his team began analyzing the captured technology. The Harvester's memory contained star charts, collection records, and operational protocols. Commander, you need to see this, Turner called Reynolds to the lab. An hour later. We've mapped their patrol routes. The Harvesters have hit at least 7 other star systems before this one. Reynolds studied the display. Any pattern to their targets? Yes, sir. They only attack worlds with certain resource profiles, and this is interesting. They completely avoid systems with environmental parameters similar to Earth. They avoid death worlds, Foster said, joining them. Planets with high gravity, extreme weather, dangerous predators, planets that produce species like us, Reynolds finished the thought. Turner nodded. Exactly. The Harvesters are programmed to seek out the easiest targets. Species from gentle worlds with valuable resources but limited defensive capabilities. Reynolds's expression darkened. They're bullies, targeting those who can't fight back effectively. Until now, Turner added. I don't think their programming ever accounted for meeting a species like humans. Reynolds turned to Foster. Arrange a meeting with the Nalari commander. I think it's time we had a proper conversation about these harvesters and what we can do about them. Commander Riln boarded the vanguard with obvious nervousness. Despite being taller than most humans, he moved carefully, as if afraid of breaking something. The higher gravity of the human ship made his movement slightly awkward. Reynolds welcomed him to the conference room. Thank you for coming, Commander. Riln bowed slightly. Thank you for saving my people. Your ship and your warriors are unlike anything we have ever seen, Foster translated smoothly between them. We're glad we could help, Reynolds said. We've analyzed the harvester's data. These machines have attacked many worlds like yours. Yes, Riln confirmed. We have heard stories from other star systems. The harvesters take what they want, and no one can stop them. Until you arrived. Reynolds leaned forward. The harvesters deliberately avoid planets like Earth, worlds with harsh conditions that produce stronger, more aggressive species. Riln's large eyes widened. Your world is harsh, but you have achieved such technology. Because of it, not despite it, Reynolds explained. Struggle made us stronger. Competition made us innovate. The constant fight for survival shaped us into what we are. Riln seemed to consider this deeply. We Nalari evolved in peace and abundance. We never needed to fight as you do. And that's why the harvesters targeted your world, Reynolds said. But now they've made a mistake. They've drawn the attention of a Death World species. Death World? Riln questioned. That's what we call planets like Earth. Worlds that try to kill their inhabitants daily. Worlds that forge species like humans. Riln looked at the humans around the table with new understanding. And now the harvesters will learn what that means. Reynolds nodded grimly. Yes, they will. The shuttle descended slowly toward the surface of Tau Ceti III. Commander Reynolds watched through the viewport as the Nalari capital city came into view. It was unlike any human city he had ever seen. The buildings were tall and graceful, with flowing curves instead of sharp angles. Many structures seemed to merge with the natural landscape, trees and gardens integrated into the architecture rather than separated from it. The entire city appeared to have been designed as a single, harmonious unit. Beautiful, murmured Lieutenant Foster beside him. Different from Earth, Reynolds agreed. No walls, no defensive structures. Turner nodded. A civilization that never expected to be attacked. The shuttle landed on a circular platform near what appeared to be the central government building. A small group of Nalari waited to greet them, led by a tall figure in flowing blue robes. High Counselor Ilara, Foster said, checking her translator. The Nalari equivalent of their world leader. Reynolds straightened his uniform. Remember everyone, we're guests here. First official diplomatic contact between our species. The shuttle door opened, and Reynolds led his small team out onto the platform. The air was slightly thinner than Earth's, but breathable. The gravity was notably lighter, making each step feel bouncy to the humans. High Counselor Ilara stepped forward, making a graceful gesture with both hands. Welcome to Nalara, friends, from the stars. We are honored by your presence and eternally grateful for your assistance. Reynolds returned the gesture as Foster had instructed him. We are honored by your welcome, High Counselor. Earth extends its friendship to the people of Nalara. Ilara's large eyes studied the humans with undisguised curiosity. Please, come. We have prepared a meeting place where we can talk and learn about each other. The meeting chamber was a circular room with a transparent dome that showed the sky above. The humans and Nalari sat together around a table made from what appeared to be a single piece of living wood, still connected to its roots. Your world is beautiful, Reynolds began, like nothing we have on Earth. Ilara nodded. We have spent thousands of years shaping our environment to be in balance with nature. Until the harvesters came, we had known peace for 15 generations. Tell us about your history, Turner asked. How did your civilization develop? Ilara gestured and the lights dimmed. A holographic display appeared above the table, showing the Nalari world through time. We evolved from communal gatherers, she explained. Our world has abundant resources and few natural predators. Our ancestors lived in harmony with the environment, developing technology to enhance life rather than to overcome threats. The display showed the Nalari civilization growing, building impressive structures, developing space travel, all without the wars or destruction that marked human history. We explored our star system and eventually developed ways to travel to nearby stars, Ilara continued. We met other peaceful species, established trade, shared knowledge. Then the IOI harvesters appeared. The display changed to show harvester ships attacking Nalari outposts. They came without warning or communication. They take resources, technology, even people. We had no defense against them. Our ships were not built for fighting. Reynolds nodded grimly. Earth's history is different. At his signal, Turner activated their own display. The hologram showed Earth's diverse and often extreme environments. Towering mountains, vast oceans, dense jungles, scorching deserts. Our world shaped us through challenge, Reynolds explained. High gravity, extreme weather, tectonic activity, dangerous predators. For most of our history, survival was never guaranteed. The display showed early humans hunting, building shelters, fighting predators, and eventually fighting each other. We evolved first as prey, then became predators ourselves, Reynolds continued. Competition for resources led to conflict. We spent thousands of years fighting each other before we learned to work together. The Nalari watched in silence as the display showed human warfare through the ages, from ancient battles to modern conflicts. Many seemed disturbed by the images. Only in recent centuries did we achieve global peace, Reynolds said. And even that came after devastating world wars that nearly destroyed us. Ilara's expression was difficult to read. Your history is troubling, yet it created beings capable of defeating threats we could not face. Reynolds nodded. Earth forged us through fire. We had to become strong to survive. The harvesters avoid worlds like yours, one of the Nalari scientists observed. They seek easier targets. They're scavengers, Reynolds said, taking from those who can't fight back effectively. But now they've crossed paths with a species that evolved fighting predators, and becoming predators ourselves when necessary. After the formal meeting, Reynolds and Foster walked with Ilara through one of the city's garden paths. Above them, glowing orbs provided soft light as darkness fell. Your cities on Earth, Ilara asked. Are they like ours? Foster smiled. Not quite. Our cities were often built for protection first, comfort second. Many started as fortresses, or defensive positions near resources. Even now, Reynolds added, our buildings are designed to withstand disasters, earthquakes, floods, storms. Earth never lets us forget how dangerous it can be. Ilara considered this. Your people must be very strong to thrive in such conditions. We adapt, Reynolds said. It's what humans do best. They stopped at a viewing platform overlooking the city. In the distance, the lights of repair ships could be seen working to fix the damage from the harvester attack. The harvesters will return, Ilara said quietly. They always do. More ships better prepared. Reynolds nodded. We know. We've analyzed their communication patterns from the captured processor. They're part of a larger network, gathering resources for some central authority. Will you help us again when they come back? Ilara asked. We'll do more than that, Reynolds replied. We'll teach you how to defend yourselves. The next day, Lieutenant Wilson stood before a group of 20 Nalari volunteers. They were the first members of what would become the Nalari Defense Force. The first rule of combat, Wilson explained, is to understand your environment and use it to your advantage. The Nalari watched carefully as Wilson demonstrated basic fighting stances. Their bodies were more flexible than human forms, but also less dense with less natural muscle mass. You don't have to fight like humans, Wilson told them. You have your own strengths, better balance, greater flexibility, excellent vision. We'll develop techniques that work for your physiology. In another part of the city, Turner worked with Nalari scientists, helping them adapt human defensive technology to Nalari systems. Your ships have excellent sensors, Turner noted. Better than ours in many ways. We can use that to detect harvesters earlier, giving you more time to prepare. The Nalari scientist Manar nodded. And your weapon designs can be modified for our vessels. With some adjustments, yes. Your power systems actually have more capacity than ours, just configured differently. That evening, Reynolds met with his team to discuss their progress. The Nalari are quick learners, Foster reported. Their language skills are exceptional. Several are already speaking basic English. Wilson nodded. They're not natural fighters, but they're determined. What they lack in instinct, they make up for in precision and coordination. Their technology is impressive, Turner added. In some areas more advanced than ours. They just never applied it to warfare. Reynolds considered this information. We have a month before the Vanguard needs to return to Earth. In that time, we need to give the Nalari enough knowledge to protect themselves. And after that? Foster asked. After that, Reynolds said, we bring what we've learned back to Earth. The harvesters are a threat to peaceful worlds throughout this part of the galaxy. Earth won't stand by and let that continue. You're thinking bigger than just defending the Nalari, Turner observed. Reynolds nodded. Humanity has spent too long fighting itself. Maybe this is what we needed, a common enemy, a clear purpose. To be the protectors of those who can't protect themselves. The Deathworlders defending the peaceful worlds, Foster said with a small smile. Exactly, Reynolds agreed. It's time to show the galaxy what humans can really do when we have something worth fighting for. 6 months had passed since the Vanguard's return to Earth. The news of alien contact had changed humanity forever. Nations set aside old conflicts as people united around a new purpose, defending the stars. Now, Admiral Lisa Park stood on the bridge of the UES Defender, Earth's newest and most powerful warship. Beside her were 3 other vessels, the Vanguard, now upgraded, and 2 purpose-built warships, the Guardian and the Protector. Together, they formed humanity's first interstellar battle group, but they weren't alone. 5 Nalari ships flew alongside them, their sleek silver hulls now reinforced with armor and fitted with weapons designed by human engineers. Their crews included both Nalari and human officers, working together. Battle Group Status Report, Admiral Park ordered. All ships reporting ready, Admiral, Commander Reynolds replied from his station. He had been promoted but chose to remain on the front lines rather than take a desk job back on Earth. The Nalari ships are in formation, added Lieutenant Foster, now the fleet's chief communication officer. Captain Menar says his crews are prepared. Park nodded. The former Nalari scientist had proven to be an excellent student of human military tactics and now commanded the Nalari flagship. Navigation, status of FTL drive? Drives charged and ready, Admiral. Course to the Harvester Hub is plotted. Park took a deep breath. This mission was more than a rescue operation. The data from the captured Harvester processor had revealed the location of a central hub, a massive space station where the Harvesters delivered their stolen resources and received new instructions. All ships, prepare for FTL jump. We exit directly into combat positions. Weapons hot on arrival. The fleet disappeared in flashes of light as the ships entered FTL. 3 weeks later, the combined fleet dropped out of FTL at the edge of an uncharted system. Before them floated a massive structure, a ring-shaped station orbiting a small, rocky planet. Harvester Hub confirmed, Turner reported from the science station. I'm detecting over 30 Harvester ships docked or patrolling. Reynolds studied the tactical display. They've never faced a coordinated attack before. Their defenses are minimal. Park nodded. Because no one's ever fought back effectively. Until now. She opened a channel to the fleet. This is Admiral Park. Execute Attack Plan Alpha. Human ships will engage the patrol vessels. Nalari ships will target the hub's defensive systems. The human ships surged forward, weapons charged. The Harvester patrol ships moved to intercept, but they were outmatched. The Defender's main cannons, designed by engineers who had spent centuries perfecting weapons of war, tore through the first Harvester ship like paper. The Nalari vessels, more nimble than their human counterparts, darted around the hub, firing precisely at defensive turrets and communication arrays. Their crews had trained for months under human guidance, turning their natural precision and coordination into deadly efficiency. From the hub, a swarm of smaller Harvester drones launched, moving to surround the attackers. They're adapting their tactics, Reynolds noted, learning from previous defeats. But not fast enough, Park replied. Deploy fighter squadrons. From the human ships, smaller craft launched, fighters piloted by humans who had grown up playing. Combat simulations, their reflexes honed by generations of competitive gaming. They moved through the drone swarm with unpredictable patterns, destroying the Harvester units with practiced ease. On the Nalari flagship, Captain Minar watched the human pilots with admiration. They fly as if they were born in space, he said, to his human advisor, Lieutenant Wilson. Wilson smiled. On Earth we have a saying, play hard, fight harder. Those pilots spent their childhoods in virtual dogfights. This is just the real thing. 3 hours into the battle, the combined fleet had destroyed most of the Harvester forces. The hub's defenses were crippled, its communication arrays smoking ruins. Admiral, Foster called out, I'm detecting a transmission. From the hub, it's attempting to communicate. Park raised an eyebrow. Put it through. The main screen flickered, showing not an alien face but a simple geometric pattern that pulsed as a synthetic voice spoke. Attention attacking vessels. This harvesting operation is essential for the continuation of the core intelligence. Your interference threatens multiple systems. We propose a compromise. We will avoid your species' territories and those of your allies in exchange for continued operation in unclaimed sectors. Park looked to Reynolds, who shook his head slightly. This is Admiral Lisa Park of the United Earth Fleet. Your harvesting operations involve attacking peaceful civilizations and taking their resources. That ends today. The pattern on the screen pulsed faster. This is inefficient. We seek only resources, not conflict. The weak species are plentiful and reproduce quickly. Their losses are acceptable in the greater balance. Park's expression hardened. Not to us. She cut the transmission and opened a channel to the fleet. All ships, commence final approach. Boarding teams prepare for deployment. We're taking that hub intact. Inside the Harvester hub, human and Nalari boarding teams moved through the corridors like a well-oiled machine. The humans led the way, their combat suits protecting them from the hub's defenses. The Nalari followed, using their superior senses to detect hidden dangers and their technical skills to bypass security systems. In the central control room, Reynolds led the primary team. Hub secured, he reported. Science teams can begin data extraction. Turner arrived with a team of human and Nalari scientists. We need to access the main database. If we can understand how the Harvesters choose their targets, we can warn potential victims. As the scientists worked, a holographic display activated in the center of the room. The same geometric pattern appeared. Your actions are illogical, the core intelligence stated. You risk your existence to protect species that cannot protect themselves. This serves no evolutionary purpose. Reynolds stepped forward. That's where you're wrong. Humans evolved on a world that tried to kill us every day. We survived by working together, by protecting each other. That's not weakness. It's our greatest strength. Your species comes from a high-threat environment, the intelligence observed. A death world. You should value strength and survival above all else. We value life, Reynolds countered. All life. And we'll fight to protect it. Back on the Defender, Admiral Park received reports from across the hub. The operation was a complete success. The Harvester fleet was destroyed or disabled, and the hub was under their control. What do we do with this place? Foster asked, looking at the massive structure on the screen. We repurpose it, Park decided. Turn it into a forward base for our operations. There are more Harvester groups out there, according to the data we've captured. And there are other threats too, targeting peaceful worlds. Reynolds nodded. The Nalari have already contacted 7 other species who've suffered harvester attacks. They're eager to join our alliance. Park looked out at the stars visible through the view screen. 6 months ago, humanity had never left our solar system. Now we're building a coalition of species across multiple star systems. The Deathworlders, Foster said with a small smile, protecting those who evolved without our advantages. Send a message to Earth, Park ordered. Operation Sanctuary successful. Harvester hub secured. Request additional ships and personnel for the establishment of the first Interstellar Defense Force base. As the message was sent, Park looked around. The bridge at the mixed crew of humans and Nalari working together. Humans had spent their history fighting against nature and each other. Now they had found a better purpose for their fighting skills, defending those who couldn't defend themselves. Admiral, Reynolds said quietly, the Nalari have a question. They want to know what we call this new alliance. Park thought for a moment. The Sentinel Alliance, because we stand watch over the peaceful worlds. 1 year later, a new harvester group approached a small planet in a distant system. Before they could begin their attack, 10 ships appeared, a mix of human, Nalari, and 3 other species, vessels. The lead ship broadcast a simple message. This world is under Sentinel Alliance protection. Retreat immediately or be destroyed. The harvester ships paused, their programming calculating the threat. These weren't the easy targets they were designed to exploit. These were defenders led by creatures from a death world, creatures who had turned the harshness of their evolution into a shield for others. The harvesters turned and fled. On the bridge of the lead ship, a human captain smiled. They're learning. Beside him, a Nalari officer nodded. Thanks to you, many worlds will never know the fear we once faced. That's what Deathworlders do, the captain said. We take the strength our harsh world gave us and use it to protect others, not because we have to, but because we can. The Sentinel Alliance ships moved into defensive positions around the planet below, its inhabitants unaware of how close they had come to disaster, and how humanity's answer to a single distress call had changed the course of galactic history.